Hey, it's Terry, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terry Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Terry Talks. But this, of course, is the spin off series called Between the Two of Us, where I interview lots of different experts as a part of the breaking down of the art industry and of the arts business, just navigating the journey all together. I wanted to bring on some really specific experts that could give us sort of the behind the scenes, different perspective on very specific areas of the arts business. So before I get started, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you comment at the bottom. If you have any questions, follow-up questions based on anything that we spoke about during this episode, feel free to just comment at the bottom and I'll be sure to answer. And if you could please leave me a rating, because that helps other artists find me and that helps other artists understand that this podcast is really helpful and resourceful. So today's guest is Monica Little. I reached out to her on Instagram and proposed that she come on this podcast because she's an Etsy expert. She is a product expert. She is someone who I specifically looked up on Instagram for this type of information. Etsy has been around for eons. I know Etsy 7 years ago as being the first platform that I ever even attempted. No website. So I was like, okay, well, everyone's on Etsy. So that's where I should be, I guess. At the time, I was making leather goods. So pretty product based. And it just made sense for me. It did not have the fees that they have right now. It didn't have the algorithm. It didn't have the bells and whistles that are present on that platform now. So really what I haven't been on that platform forever. And what I wanted to do was to ask her, like, what the trends have been. How has the platform grown? How have people been leveraging it? Who's on Etsy today? I really don't have that information. So, of course, I'm going to reach out and get that information. So let's bring her on. And we'll have her join us in a second. And she'll tell us a little bit about herself and we'll go from there. All right. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Of course. Thank you for giving us a little piece of your time. Time is of the essence. So we're going to dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background first, of course, so that everyone knows how incredible you are. And then we'll just dive right into who the hell Etsy is today.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll give the really quick background story because I've been a little bit of an entrepreneur across multiple different angles, but really where it all started was about 4 years ago when I was working at a corporate job, but I knew it wasn't what I was meant to do for the rest of my life. So when I thought about working in that corporate career for the next 20, 30, 40 years, I started to get a little just concerned and worried about, is this really what I want to do with my life? So I had went to school for business. I worked in corporate offices for 8 years,
wow.
and I really went through a period of just trying to figure out what are my hobbies, what are my passions, and just what do I like to do. And from that, I started to experiment with skincare and making my own skincare. And this was something that was really close to my heart because my mom had 2 different types of cancer, battled both of them, survived both of them. So as I started to get older, that was something that was obviously top of my mind too, in terms of the food that we eat, how we exercise and take care of ourselves, but also the chemicals in our products, which are a huge component of overall health and wellness. So I started to make my own skincare. I started to talk about it on Instagram and people were asking me questions and wanted to buy it. So started to sell it, put it up on Etsy, and started to get a little bit of traction. I realized very quickly. Oh, say that again.
When was this? When did you first get on Etsy?
This was 2019. And what happened?
Not long ago.
Yeah, not too long ago. And what happened really quickly is that I realized having my corporate job of working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and starting this small business, which needed time and energy, just wasn't really cut out, wasn't really working. So I decided to take a massive risk, left my full time job, and started to focus on plant based beauty fully. Now, the thing that happens next is, of course, we think when we spend all of the time on our own business, it's just going to magically flourish and grow. And I learned really
Boom.
quickly that, yes, there's actually a lot of work that goes into it. So I spent a lot of time really learning how to master Etsy to get in front of the customers that come on the platform. I spent a lot of time learning how to show up on Instagram. I spent a lot of time
Yep.
building my own website, working on an email list. And I ended up growing my small business to multiple six figures in a matter of 2 years. And
Love.
after that, I had just the passion to share this information with other small business owners that I saw were struggling to grow their business, get in front of the right people, make more money. So that is where I am now in terms of actually helping small business owners, specifically like get seen on Etsy and create another revenue
Yeah.
stream on this platform.
Yeah, it's like I feel like one of the biggest third-party platforms in the world besides something like Society 6, or some of those other, I guess, product-based platforms. And
Yeah.
I work with fine artists, and so it's definitely been something that I have been advising them, of course, for that passive income. Like, where would you fit best? And there are so many platforms for fine artists, but some of them do want to expand into the product based world, whether it like beyond prints, beyond just that sort of thing. I mean, at one point I was on Printful, which I love. I don't know anyone who's listening, if you haven't looked at the Printful website, I put my painting on leggings, and it
Yeah.
like a yoga studio wanted them. Like they chose a specific painting and they were like, these, we want these, right? And so like that was sort of my like little entry, another little entry into the product-based world. But you are actually, I think, the first guest that I've had so far who has a business degree.
Yeah.
So you're not fully DIY.
Yeah. And that's I think the
What do you
unique
think about
part.
it? Yeah.
Well, I went to school for supply chain. So that really is how to be
Oh,
efficient with
wow.
your time, how to be efficient with
Yes.
your money, and how to be efficient with your operations. So, and then when I worked in corporate offices, I worked in purchasing, I worked in loyalty, customer loyalty, top
Oh my
customers,
God.
marketing, email, all that fun stuff. So that is one of the main reasons why I transitioned to coaching because I love the business side of things. And
Yep.
while I feel like a lot of creatives, they love the art, they love creating, they love making their products.
They can do
But
that.
when it actually comes to selling it and creating a business and all of that that goes behind the scenes, that's where some people really struggle. So yeah, that's essentially why I started to do coaching because I'm like, okay, I thought that the business stuff came easy to people, but I think
Yeah.
it's because
No.
of my like my background and everything that I've learned that's why it was a little bit easier for me. Obviously, still like a ton to learn, but that's the part that I love, and that's what I love to share with people today.
Yeah, and I would also say, like the people who have either come from some sort of corporate background where they have learned to leverage those business skills. My organization comes from being an educator in a very, very strict environment where they wanted reports and they wanted every single thing written up. They, just writing professional emails in general. I think, I leveraged all of those things and knew, wow, I'm actually really, really fucking business savvy. And no, that's not a sixth sense or an instilled like thing in everyone.
Hmm.
And so that's also something that I learned. I was, really, I hate to use the word hustling because I don't hustle, but at the time I was hustling for information. And
Yeah.
so let's get into Etsy because that was where I feel like that was where my mind was born. And I think a lot of people don't really know what's going on with that platform now and like who's on it, ways to leverage it. What are your personal thoughts?
Yeah, and Etsy has really changed so much. And even just the last
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 years since I first dipped my toe on it, even more so if you look back another 10 or 15 years or so. But
Yes.
what I really see on Etsy now is people who are shopping on Etsy are looking for unique products that they can't find elsewhere, and they are looking for more of the luxury items, the high quality items. They're no longer going on Etsy to find like the cheapest product, the hobby, the craft, the thing that someone made just because they were looking for something to make and now they decided to put it on Etsy. I think a good
Cyber
10 or 15
weary.
years ago, you could totally yeah, a good 10 or 15 years ago, you could totally get away with that in terms of having a hobby or a craft and being on Etsy and actually getting some traction. But now Etsy is, and one of the biggest complaints that people say, which is true, it is saturated. There's a ton of
Yes.
sellers selling all sorts of items on Etsy. So now when you think from a shopper's point of view, if they're going on Etsy, they're looking for the best of the best. They're not going
How do
on there to
you
find the cheapest
how do you
item or the
sort?
cheapest product. They're looking, say that again?
Like how do you, and for listeners, I know that we're lagging a little bit, so I'm sorry, just be patient with us. But for people like myself, I still go on Etsy. Um, I don't do the searching as much anymore. When I go on, I go for jewelry.
Mhm.
And I feel it's risky. So like not that long ago, my sister sent me a couple of links. She's like, I want some really nice, like gold filled or even real, like 14 karat, just like chains. And she sent me links and I was like, there, you got to do a little bit more research than just, and I understand that that's everything, right? Like I go on Yelp and I'm like a Yelper and I'm, the reviews and all that. Like I go into that. But like you said, it is so saturated. I was on in 2010. And at that point, you could find me probably pretty rather easy.
Yeah.
Um so it is kind of concerning how much you have to dig. But tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think there's ways to stand out, so there's not necessarily that much digging. How I see Etsy nowadays to be successful on Etsy is you literally have to be the best of the best. You have to
Yeah.
be the product, the piece of art that people are so drawn to because your photos are spot on, your listing description has all the details necessary, you have incredible reviews from your customers,
Bells and
and
whistles.
this is exactly what like marketing is all about, right? Are you educating through your photos, not just showing your artwork in 10 different angles, but actually showing potentially a review of someone who's purchased one of your pieces before and how much they love it, what it actually looks like in someone's home, educating through your photos too, like about your business or about your artwork, how you created it, what your inspiration was. So really looking at as this micro site, which is exactly what it is for
Yes.
you to showcase your products. And this is how you start to really stand out. And I think where people struggle is because they're like, okay, it's saturated. All right, it is saturated, but you have to be the best of the best and you can stand out in that way. And
That's
then
right.
they start to say, well, this seems like it's a lot of work. And it can be a bit of work. But the benefit here is if you can continue to get in front of new shoppers on Etsy, where they bring the shoppers to you, there's 80 million people that shop on Etsy annually. And once you know how to optimize your listing and get in front of the right people who are looking for artwork just like yours, you're going to be
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad I did this because now I don't have to do all of the marketing in terms of Instagram and really selling and trying to get in front of customers that way. I've just gotten on Etsy, I've optimized, and now the right people are finding my artwork and purchasing it. And it's so worth it to get to that state.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of people who don't have a website and spend all of their time optimizing Etsy or any another third party platform, right? Because you could go that route, right? You could invest your money in just that one platform that has everything set up, and you don't have to, hire a web designer that's $3,000 because that's really actually the average number at this point for web designers. And down the line, you can have both. So I absolutely see that value, and I love that you stated that perfectly. The other thing that really resonated with me with that I actually wrote down um, is the educating through photos, and I
Mhm.
think that that's just so like spot on because a lot of the times we either hide behind our work, like literally, right? You post a static image and you're like, peace out, right? You post and ghost. Or you share about something else, there's like a gap, you know what I mean, between that storytelling and then that static post. Something I'm working with my client right now on is like what's in between that's going to make you connect with your buyers, right? And that's what you said, that all that professionalism that goes into the captions and that goes into the description and that goes into like the clear photos, and that's to me what's going to build me to trust that I want to buy a really beautiful handmade gold link chain from you, or I
Mhm.
actually buy my nose rings from someone in Israel
Yeah.
and they've got like a turquoise stone in it. The turquoise stone has never fallen out. It's never turned my nose green. It's never, like all of the things. And so I am but she also has insane ratings. She
Mhm.
has insane testimonials. And I think fine artists forget that is like, you've got to have your own Yelp. Like that, I want to know that people trust you as well, aside from
Yeah.
you telling me, right? And that's why I have testimonials from, past clients. I have a vault, right? Um, so what do some of the people that you work with now? Well, first of all, I actually wanted to know if you're still on Etsy.
Ooh, so I actually closed my skincare small business when I moved to Arizona about a year and a half ago. So this is like another fun part of the story that I
Yeah.
didn't mention earlier. So I was running my skincare business for about 2 years, left my corporate job during that time frame, grew it to multiple six figures, and also during that 2 years, I ended up co-owning a retail store in Chicago where we had over 100 local Chicago
Oh
small
my
businesses. We had one retail store year round and two pop-ups. So across the three stores, myself and a business partner, we had a
Oh
ton
my
of
God.
local small businesses. And that's where I heard what a lot of people were struggling with. That's when I started coaching. Then I moved from Chicago to Arizona a little bit over a year ago. And that was really the catalyst of, do I want to relocate my second studio space I had for my small business, rehire a team because I had
Yeah.
makers and packers and people who were doing most of the work for me, and really start over in Arizona? Or do I want to take this as that kind of breaking point of, let me focus fully on coaching and do what I think I'm meant to do? So it's funny because you start to see themes in your life. When I
Yeah.
left my corporate job, I was like, I'm kind of nervous because this is a great steady income coming in, but I want to follow my dreams. And then when I started to have that same type of conversation in my head about coaching, okay, I'm kind of nervous to close my skincare business because it is consistent income. It's built, it's a machine,
Yes.
but I just feel so much drawn to the coaching. And I'm a big believer of follow where that nudge is taking you, because it's never going to be wrong. It's always going to lead you in the right direction. So yeah, that was just another big life pivot for me that happened in the last year and a half.
Yeah, and I think also when you are passionate about sharing things, similarly to the way that I am as an educator at heart, you want to like release that information. Like, what's the
Yeah.
point in me having the pent up, like, oh my God, like, when I see like someone doing something where they could do something better at the grocery store, I'm like, well, no, let me give you some coupons. Let me like let me help you, like, make this a better experience. And so where do you see Etsy today? How do you see your clients using it? Um
Hmm.
who do you think, like, who's on there? I mean, I know that like at the time there were a lot of jewelers on there.
Hmm.
Um I've seen some trends on like, quilting and like special other specialty items, a lot of custom made work. Um but I definitely want to know how you see maybe fine artists leveraging it and what you're noticing on there today.
Yeah, 100%. I think a big thing on Etsy is home decor and items that go in the
Ooh.
home. So when we
Ooh.
talk about fine artists and people who are creating artwork that literally goes into someone's home in a specific room, or is a perfect gift, or
Oof.
is used in that way, Etsy is such a perfect avenue, because people who are on Etsy, like we said at the beginning, are people who don't want to go on Amazon because what they're looking for isn't there. It's just
Right.
not something that is like mass produced and readily available on Amazon. They want something more unique. So
And
they're
risky.
not going to Amazon, not going to Target, not going to Walmart. They're going somewhere specific online to find an item that they can't find elsewhere. So one example for me, I actually bought wallpaper that I have in my office that I looked in those places. I couldn't find it. I'm like, duh, I'm going to find it on Etsy. So I went to Etsy and searched for something super specific, hot pink with cheetahs and
I
bluebirds. And that's what's on the wall in my office. But
love it.
things like that is what people
Yes.
go to Etsy for. So I love that you work with fine artists, because if it's unique, if it's one of a kind, if it's custom, if it's pricey, I mean, that has a place on Etsy too. One of my members, she sells jewelry, but her necklaces per piece are between 350 to 550 each, and she's already sold about 32 or 33 on Etsy since we
Okay.
started working together.
So it
So if
doesn't
there's
just
an
have to be low tier
exactly, it
items.
does 100%. So you can have the high quality, one of a kind, expensive items, and people will pay for those. But like you also mentioned, if you do prints or replicas of your artwork, that has room on Etsy too, if people have an appetite for that style. So really, if you have something unique, one of a kind, custom, or just handmade, perfect
Oh God, I'm
place
sorry.
is to put them up on Etsy.
Shh. I'm sorry. Oh
It's
God.
okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't have noise canceling, and my viewers all know that I stop it. Holiday, come here. Make your
Oh,
appearance. There, okay?
oh my gosh, she's so cute. All she wanted was some screen time.
That's it. And she is a little bit of you don't want to be on camera? Okay. She's hiding behind my arm.
So
Um
sweet.
she's definitely a barker. So Amazon packages and like she's the person.
Yeah.
Um but I everyone all my viewers know that I foster like every week. And so she's here at the Hotel Terry. Um
Oh,
but she obviously they all want my attention when I'm on a call. So it's perfect timing.
I love it.
So yeah, I think that that's really great insight into the height that their high tier items do have a space on
Yes.
Etsy. That's number one. I know of one fine artist that I whose artwork I collect and have been collecting probably for 10 years now. Um, who's only on Etsy. You can
Yeah.
only buy her stuff on Etsy. And I was so surprised, but I think when she started on Etsy, it it was probably just because, a lot of us didn't want to make a website or didn't
Mhm.
have the skill or didn't know. You know what I mean? Not there's, I would say very few artists out there who are extremely tech savvy, um and you want to outsource but you don't have the funds yet because you're emerging. And so there's always that kind of dilemma is like I don't have enough money to hire and outsource yet. um and so that was my sort of reasoning for hopping on Etsy. But now it work it's like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
um So I think that those are like some amazing points. I want to thank you so much for just sharing that insight. Um my last question for you is where do you see, and this is just your personal opinion, like where do you see Etsy going maybe? What do you see it how do you see it unfolding? I mean, we're about to be in 2024. What do you think even just like this holiday season?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm really excited for this holiday season because for me personally, at least, I have so many friends who aren't in the business world in terms of having their own business, a product business, a handmade business, an art business. And what they always say to me is I go do all my shopping on Etsy for the holidays. So I love when I hear that because
Yay.
that just shows what customers and shoppers actually are doing when they're looking for items from small businesses. So like I said earlier, I think it's the unique items, the best of the best, the items that are truly going to stand out are going to be a great option on Etsy. And how I see things in the next couple of years, and this is really where I work with small business owners too, is taking the people who may have their own website and may have a great Instagram and may have a great following and actually taking them back to Etsy to create that revenue stream from the people who are shopping on there. So I see that Etsy is just going to continue to grow and grow as people kind of pull back a little bit from like Amazon shopping and cookie
Yeah.
cutter items and start to be like, I actually want to have high quality items that I like. I want my home to have items that I enjoy using. I want my skincare to be items that I look forward to using, and really shifting away from going to Amazon for cookie cutter items that you can get anywhere, and finding those items that just make you feel good no matter what they're for, and also to make you feel good when you gift them to people. So I think no matter where you are in your business, if you're starting out, Etsy's a perfect place. Like you said, it is extremely inexpensive to get started and very
Yep.
easy to get started. But also, if you're pretty established, let's bring your products, your artwork onto Etsy too, and just see what happens and see
Yeah.
what types of people find you. And I think that's going to be really where people get momentum over the next couple of years.
I am all about fuck around and find out. I
Yeah.
am all about it because you do never know. You
Yep.
never know what's gonna like what's just gonna gel. And the last thing I want to say is that I am still a part of an intense Etsy group on Facebook. I think it's called I think it's like the official Etsy sellers slash something. It's only for Etsy sellers.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people that like it's like between people who are like venting
Yep.
about, maybe a crazy client or whatever it is, like some, whatever, or like really celebrating like some crazy sales, asking questions about like the ebbs and flows of like, hey guys, are sales slow this month? Or, like just really confiding in each other. And so that's also an amazing resource. If you are on Facebook, there are those groups where you can get that insider information if you really need to. So tell us where we can find you. Tell us where and how we can hire you and what programs you have going on that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mostly hang out on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Monica Little Coaching. So if there are any questions from this episode, feel free to reach out, say hello, and ask away. I also have a free training. So that's what I would recommend if you're interested in learning more about Etsy. So how I really teach Etsy is there's three main components. First, you have to appear in the search results when someone is looking for an artwork piece just like yours. You have to attract their attention on that first page search results. Then once they click on your listing, you have to confirm their expectations with your photos, with your description. And then lastly, there's that trust decision, the reviews that we talked about. So those are the three necessary components for Etsy really to become that passive income machine to get you in front of customers. So I have a free training that dives into that just to understand what works, how to get started, how to really turn this into a strategic revenue stream for your business.
Yeah.
So that is at monicalittlecoaching.com/Etsy webinar. So I'll recommend that for anyone interested, but also, yeah, say hello on Instagram, stop by. And I'm excited to see if people hop onto Etsy and how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for all of that. Guys, I will make sure to link all of this information on Spotify and on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Monica, for taking the time out just to like offer us the insight, the perspective, the advice, all the good stuff, and chat with you all soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.